Well, I guess it means we're live, the routine. Little red light, little green light, bingo, and we're up. I think what I want to talk about today really is something different. We live in an age where pretty much everybody's got a mobile phone. Even illegal aliens have got mobile phones. So we use them. And this has become a big override in our culture because many of us, well, we tend to relate or not relate to one another based on manufacturers' mobile phones. It's one thing when you got on the horn, you dialed them up and you talked to them. That phone was wired into your house. So you had every bit as much conversation with friends and acquaintances in person. Today, that's not exactly the case. Today, it looks like, my God, the phone, the cell phone, is 90% of what you talk about. And therein lies the rub because when you're on the other end of the phone, it's so easy to be obnoxious, to be rude, to be domineering, to be sappy, fake, not real. It's just so damned easy to do. And that's happening. We have a lot of what I call telephone acquaintanceships. And I counsel people from time to time. And I've been talking to Scott and his wife, Mary. Name's made up. And I've asked him, just when does a phone acquaintance become too high maintenance to be worth maintaining? In other words, how much shit are you willing to put up with someone on the phone before you just write it off? This all take, this no give, that's got to end. In person, it's really easy, not on the phone. Well, this is a tale about Scott and Jim in what I guess you'd have to call it an all give, no take relationship. They're far away from each other. Theirs is a long standing, casual acquaintanceship. Now, Scott and Jim are both chatterboxes. Hell, they talk even more than I do. They love to. Gifts-of-gab seem to be what get in their way, though. And from what I can understand, most of this is Jim's fault. Jim is the one half of the Scott-Jim conversation, but Jim is extremely thin-skinned, and his hubris is beyond mention. It's insane. The guy loves himself. It's an I'm always right attitude, and his very thin skin that probably prohibit him from having any friends at all. Any, a real friendship, not just a good morning, how you doing, go to work, go home. Jim, the way he is, there's little chance of any future in his relationship with Scott. Scott's not sensitive like he is. Now, we all have sensitivities, of course. Scott's not perfect. But compared to Jim, Scott is the Pope. Nobody should have to kiss someone else's ass to keep up a relationship. As I've told Scott, he doesn't need to be kissing Jim's ass to maintain it. Jim, it seems, is proficient at verbal bullying and blackmail. And that's probably the biggest reason why he has no real close friendships. I can see it. I wouldn't want to be his friend. God, no. I mean, Jim always, and I mean always, will monopolize a conversation. And he'll insist that Scott talks too much. He'll bully him. He'll talk over him. That's just how he is. As for Jim, I'm beginning to think that he couldn't maintain a real conversation with his own reflection. Now, recently, Scott's wife, fed up with this, secretly recorded a 46-minute phone call between the two men. And she timed the call. She played it back later. This woman went to a lot of trouble. She recorded the 46-minute phone call, then took a stopwatch and recorded who had talked for how long. The result was a not so surprising score of 12 minutes talk time for Scotty, 34 minutes talk time for Jim. You understand? Jim dominated the call by 22 minutes, nearly 3 times as much jabber as Scott's. She played the recording for Scott, She showed him her times. Scott wasn't really surprised. He looked at it and he said, wow. And his wife said to him, the next time Jim gets snotty, that's her words, accusing you of monopolizing the conversation, she said, just show him this and push the papers to him. Well, Scott shouldn't have to put up with Jim's shit anymore. He'll shut down Jim's tactics, okay? A typical tactic would be like Jim says to Scott, anytime Scott tries to talk, you're talking over me again. You never give me a chance to finish a sentence. You've got to stop butting in. Well, this timing shows that's not the case. In the midst of this conversation that she recorded, Jim said that to Scott twice, and at remarkably inappropriate times, but apparently it was okay for Jim. This is what happens when Scott mistakes Jim taking a breath as an opening to join the conversation. He's not horning in. He thinks, oh, maybe it's a good time. Jim is only happy when a phone conversation is really just a monologue, his monologue. He really needs to look up the word conversation in the dictionary. He can go to dictionary.com. He can break open his Funk and Wagnalls, whatever he has handy. He'll find out that a conversation is not a monologue. Now, Scott could easily show him those stats. That has shut Jim down. That would just, boom, shut him down with all the punch of a brick through a plate glass window. He understands that Jim could never survive this kind of an indictment, but would simply fade away into the anonymity of the overly sensitive. Not that this would necessarily be a bad thing. Jim is thin-skinned to the nth degree. His job, his family, his car, and even his favorite TV shows are verboten, forbidden territory. You gotta tread lightly with this guy. You violate any of this secret list of things, of sensitivities, and it will bring swift retribution. Enter the cold shoulder. He might shut you off for hours, days, or weeks. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that gives Scott a way to bow out. You offend him, he gives you the cold shoulder. You got a mobile phone, just block the son of a bitch. Scott, here's my advice. Move on. Jim is too high maintenance and far too immature. He's way too immature for you to waste your time on. Why don't you restrict your friendships to adults?